Alan Hudson, topic of the week. Always love to get Hudsons View on topic of the week on the current view. Al, Ronaldo again. We spoke about him a couple of weeks ago when he decided he wasn't going to play and then he went down the tunnel. Ronaldo now has gone to Piers Morgan and given his side of the situation at Manchester United. What's your opinion on it? And in your day, you didn't go to the TV, you went to the papers. And I'd like to just touch upon the incident in Australia when you and Malcolm got sent back home a day before the Arsenal team did on a Singapore and an Australian trip. So, I want to get the player side out. All we ever do is get the one side and the media and the football club.
Well, yeah, I think the big thing about that with Arsenal, it was it was a very sad period for me because I found it quite humorous because of that kind of that's my nature. I see the funny side of getting sent home a day before the team were coming home, and it just said one thing to me, that the manager was trying to make all he did really, Terry Neal, and I can't really have a go at him because he died not so long ago, and I didn't like to hear that news because he wasn't a bad bloke as it happened, but it did make him a good manager. And at that time, all he did was tarnish or help tarnish Arsenal's reputation, because Arsenal are a fantastic football club. And to send me and Malcolm home for something so trivial, which wasn't really, we didn't really do anything wrong, to tell the truth. All we did, we went to a match one night, which Arsenal didn't play. It was, in fact, my friend Bogey played for Red Star against Celtic. And they were the other two teams in the tournament with us. And we were upstairs in the bar afterwards with a load of Arsenal supporters, me, Georgie Armstrong, bless him, and Malcolm. And we went down afterwards and get the bus, and the team bus had gone. So we got a taxi back to the hotel, and Terry Neal was there. And he said, "What do you think you three were up to?" So we said we was up actually miles and miles from home with all the Arsenal supporters who were so pleased to see us. They were, I think the whole team should have been there. Yeah. They travelled over some had travelled over from England, and some had travelled from other parts of Australia to actually see their heroes. And I said, "And there's you leaving us behind." And he said, "Well, something's got to give here." I said, "Well, Terry, you can't come up with, you're trying to make you're trying to make us wrong when you're wrong." And then the following day, we travelled to Melbourne, and it was about 6 a.m. when we arrived, and the rooms weren't ready. And me and Malcolm went into the room, and then we went downstairs, and they laid on a breakfast or something. And he said, "You're training at such and such a time," and we refused to train. And we said, "This is ridiculous. We're on the holiday. We're on. This is a working holiday. We've played the matches. We've played 60-odd games this season. We're fit. We don't need to train. And what the last thing we want to do is get off a 4-hour aeroplane trip and train." And he said, "Well, you can get the next plane home to England then." And he sent us back. And the team played the next night and followed us back the following day. So it was and it was all over the newspapers. And Malcolm had the News of the World waiting for him. I had the Sunday People waiting for me because it was a massive story of how you got sent home. And Terry Neal walked into the Sunday People, the newspaper in Fleet Street, and he went in to see the Neville Holden, his name was, the editor, and he said, "About if you print this article about Hudson on Sunday, there'll be trouble." So Neville said to him, he says, "Let me just tell you, might be manager of Arsenal." He said, "But don't talk to me like that in my office. You want to go in your office and sort your own affairs out." He said, "Because you've made a right mess of this. The article will go in the paper, all you've done is rubbish Arsenal Football Club because they didn't do anything wrong. What did they do wrong? I mean, we did Singapore and all this. There was transvestites and everything over there, And he's sending us home for signing autographs after a game. We didn't do anything wrong. We didn't break any curfew. It was just ridiculous, really. And he really did it to get his name in headlines, really, Paul.
What was the fallout from that, Al? Because you're right. I mean, you didn't have the greatest of relationships with Terry Neal. I've done a podcast with Malcolm, and Malcolm didn't have the greatest of relationships with Terry Neal. There were a number of Arsenal players that didn't have the greatest of relationships with Terry Neal. In fact, Alan Ball,
Well,
who you thought,
the great Alan Ball won the World Cup,
yeah,
and he was the
absolutely,
most renowned. He won the league in 1970 when Chelsea won the cup. He won the league for Everton,
yep,
and he was a star player in '70. He was fantastic in Mexico. He was a fantastic player for Arsenal, and yet he got rid of him and replace him with me, who was supposed to be a troublemaker. And Alan Ball was one of the best professional footballers you've ever come across.
yeah.
So all this was, none of it was in the best interest of Arsenal Football Club, which was the laughable thing about it. He paid a record fee for Malcolm, and then he sent Malcolm home, and Malcolm said, "Well, send me home." He said, and the crazy thing about it, he I think we did it before. He fined us a month's wages. Now, a month's wages at Arsenal for me was, I think I was on about, I don't know, about not even free, about £250 a week or something before tax, and that was about £1,000 for that month. And the Sunday people give me £5,000 for my story. And I went home I said to my missus, we're going to have a lovely summer's holiday on the strength of Terry Neal. So he thought he was trying to be clever, and all he did was cause trouble for the club and make and like throw mud, And I suppose it didn't help me coming from Stoke, where my manager at Stoke, this couldn't have happened, Paul. It would never have happened, because he was one of those that would say, when you're on tour, go and enjoy yourself, but as long as you play, I don't care what you do. It's nothing to do with me what you do off the field, And it was it become like it does with England managers now. It gets personal, and I don't like it when it gets personal.
And this is the thing with Ronaldo. We touched upon it last time. He wanted a reaction from Ronaldo. He got it. Is there something more behind the scenes that's been going on that Ronaldo has just blown up, gone to the media, as you went to the papers, because the manager can't manage these big star players and feels inferior to Ronaldo, as Terry Neal, I think we can say, did to Alan Ball, and may well have done to you and Malcolm MacDonald. Because interestingly, he didn't send Geordie home, did he?
Well, he did. The reason he didn't send Geordie home, Geordie went in to see him. He said, "If them two are going," he said, "I want to go." He said, "Because I've been with them all the time."
Yeah.
He said, "How comes you're sending them home and not me?" Well, Terry Neal knew that the Arsenal fans knew that Geordie Armstrong was the cleanest pro. He was the best professional footballer that probably ever been on their books. And he didn't break any rules either. He said, "Why are you not sending me home?" He said, "Well, it's obviously why he didn't send him home, because of that made Terry Neal look bad. Because Geordie Armstrong was a hero there,
Yeah.
Whereas Malcolm MacDonald and I had a past.
Yeah.
It was a time when I'd had the England ban. I hadn't long been over the England ban. It went wrong at Stoke City. The roof fell off, and I had to go to Arsenal. So there was always a cloud over my career, and that didn't help. Yeah. He probably thought, oh, well, if I send Hudson home, it just goes along with the flow of what happened at Chelsea when Osgood and I left, because they couldn't afford to finish the stand there, so they sold us. So it all fell into place. And Terry thought he would come out of it smelling the roses, but it didn't. It happened quite the opposite, you know. And the thing with the only thing with Ronaldo is what's happened since, which although he was wrong to be treated the way he was. I didn't like his comment about, the club's never been the same since Ferguson left,
Yeah.
and I had to laugh at that, because I thought, well, why go back there?
Yeah.
So Ronaldo's been one of the greatest players of all time. There's no doubt about it. He's been a credit to himself more than anything and what he's done in the game. But to come out with that kind of comment is kind of a bit of an own goal, because you think, I know Ferguson was a little bit behind in returning there, because Manchester United were in big trouble. He ended up being their top goal scorer when he went back, and he was a credit again. But to turn around and say that this club has never been the same since Ferguson left it, it's like me returning to Terry Neal, and saying, oh, well, let's give it another go, and then it all goes wrong again, but it's I think on Ronaldo's part, he would have been better off keeping quiet here, because he's a hero with all the fans and everything else, and I think all the fans in Manchester would be a little bit concerned about his comment there. If I was a fan, I would think, well, why come back if you knew the club weren't the same as what Alex had,
I think that reading between the lines, I'm trying to look at it from both sides. I think Ronaldo come back there with the best interests. Was it Solskjaer that brought him back?
Yeah, yeah.
And then they had a change of manager, and they had this Ralph Rangnick, who, by Ronaldo's admissions, he didn't actually say it, but he appears quite clueless. I'll wreck it, Ralph. He's now got this
Yeah.
Ten Hag, who I don't
Yeah.
think he's particularly enamoured with Ten Hag. And I think that he's looked at everything since he's been back at United. And he's been away to Madrid, he's been away at Juventus, he's been playing under various managers, having various training sessions, etc., etc., and living the lifestyle in Spain and Italy. And I think he's come back to United, and I think it's been an absolute culture shock for him. I think there's things that have been said, and he's just said, from the day of leaving to like now, nothing's changed under Sir Alex. And I think that had Sir Alex still been the manager, I don't think this would have got out, because again, I think most of the podcasts that we do, we always bring it back to managements and the if onlys. And I think that it does boil down to a manager. And Ronaldo was left out of the last squad, wasn't he? There's been a lot of things that's gone on with Ronaldo, and I think he's just flipped his lid, phoned up Piers and says, let's go and do this, because I want out. And if they ain't going to get rid of me, they're going to get rid of me now.
Well, I think you're right. I think, I mean, you've only got to look at Ronaldo's record, and he wins. No, he wins hands down. When Manchester United, when they first got him, Ferguson was a fantastic signing, and he lived up to the billing and more. He done fantastic with them. But even when he left, Manchester United carried on to win things, and they were even more successful. And he's gone back expecting the world to be the football world over here to be the same, and it's not.
No.
It's a very similar circumstance with what's going on at Chelsea now. This fella's gone to Chelsea, and we all wonder now, our managers getting more like players now, and thinking, well, the money's good, because, and then he goes back to Brighton, they get beat 4-1 by the team that he built, and he's now got he's now come under the most massive scrutiny in this part of the world. I mean, I'm living half a quarter of a mile from the ground.
Yeah.
And he's under such scrutiny now, and I've never heard so many Chelsea supporters so disenchanted with the way Chelsea are playing now. And you know, Manchester United have gone through that, you know, and they're asking questions now.
Yep.
You know, did Sir Alex, when he packed up, did he have the club at best interest when they were employing these managers? Did he want to? Did he want another great manager to come in and overtake? You know, overtake to do what he done. I mean, his record's remarkable, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it is. Absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's like at Chelsea now. You know, Tuchel wins the Champions League in his first season. He's out because Americans come in. Have the Americans and the Germans got a problem? At,
Absolutely.
at Manchester United, have the Dutch and the Portuguese got a problem?
Yep.
I think they have.
Mm.
You know,
Again.
it could. You know, there are these. You know, the Spanish and all these little things. It does become very, very personal. And he's come in, the Dutch manager. Most of what he done does I like, and he's turned around and said, nobody is bigger than the club, and that's any club, not just Manchester United. That
Yeah.
applies all over the place, you know, from top to bottom. But it makes you wonder why they take the job in the first place.
Yep.
You know, if someone had said to me, "I'll give you £1 million I'll give you £1 million a week to take over Chelsea, but you've got to win something with this team," then I would think twice about it.
Yep.
Because if they didn't win nothing, they take the money back off you. Because at the moment they're actually in turmoil, and it's a decision for the owners, and it doesn't seem that the managers and the owners are on the same level.
No, it don't seem as though anyone's on the same level. And I think there's a great parallel that you've just drawn between Manchester United and Chelsea. There are things behind the scenes that aren't quite right, and people aren't talking. And when that happens, Tuchel is very successful. New owners come in. Tuchel's probably told them a few home truths. They don't like it. Parting of the waves. Ronaldo with Ten Hag, head to head, parting of the ways. At times in football, yeah, you've got to. No one's bigger than the club. You own the club or you're the manager of the club. But let's listen and have the conversation with the players, because you want to be singing from the same hymn sheet. And it just strikes me that instead of having a conversation like Tony Waddington would have with you, that wouldn't have happened. Sir Alex would have had the conversation with Ronaldo, it wouldn't have happened. There are people trying to flex their muscles because they feel a little bit of fear and they're a little bit insecure and they want to show the way. To a certain degree, Arteta did that and he won. But it ain't always the case, and if you do have the row and you don't win, you look silly because you have mud on your face.
Yeah, well, plus the fact, I mean, he ain't won nothing yet, Arteta yet. I think he's got very fortunate that the Premier League this year is awful.
Yeah.
No one could have envisaged that Liverpool would start like this. I said at the beginning of the season, you know, when they sold Mane, what's going on? You know, it's a massive loss for them. They haven't been the same team. To think that Chelsea and Manchester United won't finish in the top four this season tells you that the league and Newcastle are third, Brighton are knocking on the door, and it makes you wonder what's going on in the football world.
It does. It's topsy-turvy, Al, but again...
And I know, Paul. The thing is as well. The difference as well is the media attention is so much different from our day.
Yep.
You know, with his Instagrams and all this and that, and all the things that you and I don't understand.
Yep.
You know, what didn't have the right way? Where Sexton didn't have the right way with me. What didn't have the right way because he would call you in the office, and what goes on in the office stayed in the office.
Yep.
You know, and I remember when, strangely enough, it was Lincoln beat someone in the cup the other day, and they said it's the furthest Lincoln had got for 50 odd years or something in the League Cup. Well, the last team they beat in the League Cup, I think, was our Stoke team.
Yeah.
And Chilton was in goal. I remember Chilton was in goal. They beat us 2-1 in the cup, and we went out afterwards and had a drink. We were awful, and they knocked us out. And that night we got back in from the nightclub and they closed the hotel down.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let us in. So all of a sudden his voice come through the door, you can come in. And it was Tony Water, and then he let us in, and he sat as about six or seven, eight of us down. He said to the night porter, "Get him a drink," and we all sat down, had a drink, and he'd give us the biggest rollicking you've ever had in your life. And one by one, he said, "What individually and collectively, that just is not good enough. It's unacceptable for this club." And we had a really good side there, and he done it behind closed doors. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and it never ever came out in the press, never got to the radio, never got to the papers, because that was called respect.
Yep.
And he had shut the doors and done it. Now, if that would have happened at Chelsea or Manchester United, that would have been all over the newspapers. That would have been on the news. But that was great management. That was how to handle footballers at that time. And as bad as we were, we could have made excuses and said, "Where's a League Cup game at Lincoln? Is a banana skin." Well, there's no such thing as banana skins in them days. The performance was awful, and he knew it wasn't good enough, and he let us know. And I think when we lost that game, I think we went about 18 games after that unbeaten. So that was such a good meeting. It was a terrific meeting. Now, Terry Neal wouldn't have had the ability to do that with his players because he didn't earn the respect.
Yeah.
And I think the respect in this game now is zero.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, you even see Man City get beat by Brentford the other day, and everyone's scratching their heads. What's going on here? But yeah, it's. The Ronaldo thing, I think it's a case of nobody wins. It's a shame it's all happened because Ronaldo, my friend is a big Ronaldo fan. He loves him. He's a big gambler as well. He won on him being a top goal scorer in the Euros, and he was. If he'd have, but he wouldn't have been top goal scorer if he'd have played for us.
Yeah.
Because he'd have been defending half the time. And that's why Harry Kane didn't finish. But we're going to go on to that, I think.
We certainly will. On another podcast we will do, Al. But just to wrap that up, I think you absolutely nailed it. It comes down to respect. And Ronaldo did say in the conversation, he doesn't respect me and I don't respect him. And I think that when you have no respect, there is nowhere to go. So I think that Ronaldo, after the World Cup finals, will move on to pastures new. And I think that we can safely say that Ronaldo's played his last game for Manchester United, whether he be right or whether he be wrong. There are always two sides to every story, and that's what we like to do. I'll get both sides and get a cultured opinion. Alan Hudson's View every week on the Current View. Al, thanks for your time, mate, and we'll speak soon.
All right, mate. Lovely, Paul.
Brilliant.
Hello, pal.